Talk to me about this backlash against Al Franken.
Well, you know, Al Franken, he resigned. I think Democrats got him to do the right thing, but Al Franken didn't admit to any wrongdoing, other than that original first photo where he puts his hands very close, if not on, the chest of a woman who is sleeping. He admitted to that, but other than that, he says that some of these allegations did not happen, or he remembers them very differently. So he's basically sending this message out that he resigned over false accusations, which I think is a very bad message to send. We should believe these allegations because they're numerous, they're credible, and they're very serious in nature. And I think for Al Franken to send this message that men can be railroaded or run out of their jobs over false accusations, that does not help the case of, or the effort to get rid of sexual harassers, sexual abusers.
You know what I just realized while you were talking, John? This actually makes him look like, or makes him want to look like, the victim rather than the actual victims, because what he's doing is he's circumventing the ethics committee investigation. As I understand it, depending on when he exits, we won't get to see the outcome of that, will we? Or will that go on whether he's there or not? I would imagine not.
I think that's exactly right. Rich Lowry, National Review, made that point yesterday as well, that if Franken really, truly honestly believes that he is innocent of all these charges of groping and unwanted kissing, he should face down the ethics committee. They should hold hearings. There should be testimony. He should have a chance to face his accusers, to offer his own testimony, not to simply have this tried in the press, if he's really saying he's innocent. Now, if he wants to admit wrongdoing and resign, that's the right thing to do. And I think that that is very likely the truth, that there are so many accusations, and one instance of groping or unwanted kissing, that's enough to get you fired from private life. It should be enough to cause a resignation or getting fired from public service.
Yeah, so he basically walked back his apology, though, because we carried it live on Overtime when it happened. When he stepped up to those microphones right after the Thanksgiving break, he apologized. He said then, quote, he wanted to become part of a whole national conversation, lifting women up. What did yesterday do for that? An unraveling?
Yeah, I don't think it helped it. You know, the idea here is that we should believe allegations based on their objective truth. You know, some people have oftentimes hid behind this idea that, oh, well, it's just he said, she said. But what we've seen more recently in all these allegations, it's not he said, she said. It's he said, she said, she said, she said, and she said. There are multiple accusations, very credible, contemporaneous accounts in many cases. And Franken is sort of undermining this whole idea that we're basing these judgments on credible accusations. He's sort of accepting this idea that, well, I can't really serve well because there's this investigation going on, so I'm just going to resign. I think it is not helpful for the movement of getting rid of sexual harassers. And
then real quickly, because I don't want to dwell on this, I want to move forward, but Representative Trent Franks of Arizona, kind of the same thing in the sense that we're not going to get to see that due process play out, that ethics investigative look, because he's going to be exiting, as he says, at the end of January. I want to move on to Roy Moore, because I understand one of his accusers is about to come forward in the next little while to say that that yearbook writing that she was talking about, that the judge had written, that proved the case of the allegations that she made as a younger girl against Roy Moore were true, that she actually in her own handwriting added at least the date onto that. The significance, you think?
I think there's a substantive significance and a political significance. The substantive significance is not very great. I was in Alabama last week. I looked very closely at this, and I talked to the Moore campaign, and it's very obvious from the beginning that these are two different handwritings, two different scripts. I wrote this in my article that went up a week ago. It already says Roy Moore, Christmas 1977 in one handwriting, and it says, the specific date and the location in a different handwriting. Now, if this were a forgery, you would expect the forger to forge it all in one handwriting. I think the fact that she's admitting this late, it is bad. It'll help muddy the waters, but it does not prove at all in any way. She's not admitting to forgery. This does not prove forgery. But politically, yes, I think it does help muddy the waters.
Yeah, and so this close to the election, because we're about to see that play out in just a few days next week. How do you think this plays a role? Because you had all this information put into the game, if you will, leading up to the election, and then just before it, at least one of these accusers saying, no, that part of that I said was true was actually my handwriting. Or is that not the case?
Yeah, well, I don't think this even discredits her story alone, but it certainly does not discredit the other stories. I mean, you've had Roy Moore, basically, he's given these evasive answers as to whether or not he dated teenage girls. For many voters, that's beyond the pale. The idea of a 32-year-old man dating a 17-year-old girl, kissing a 17-year-old girl, they think that's wrong. The other really heinous accusation is against Lee Korfman. Lee Korfman is the woman who alleged that at age 14, Roy Moore molested her. And her allegations have not been disproven. This yearbook is from a different woman. This does not disprove Lee Korfman. You've had reporters from Breitbart News try and poke holes in her story. They have not done any such thing. Lee Korfman remains credible. She gave contemporaneous accounts to friends. She told her mother later. One of those friends went on the record to confirm that she was told the story at the time. The mother confirms that she was told the story later. So again, this is a credible accusation of child molestation, very serious, and this yearbook story does nothing to discredit that story.
John, what does this say about going forward, though, with regard to how the Alabama voters will do? So they'll make their choice. And have we heard anything else about what they'll do when he gets to Congress if that happens? I mean, because you've heard senators like John McCain say that they would try to look at the Constitution and see if they can unseat him. Is that chatter still going on?
Yeah, Cory Gardner just yesterday told my colleague Jenna Lifitz that they're not going to support Roy Moore, and he still thinks that this should go to a Senate Ethics Committee investigation. The Constitution is very clear. It says that Congress, each house, by a 2/3 vote, can expel a member. It's pretty open-ended. There isn't really precedent for expelling someone for conduct that took place prior to taking one seat, but they've never said that they couldn't do that. So, I mean, for very heinous accusations, I would imagine, I believe that they should look into that, whether it's, something like treason, murder, rape, child molestation, something like that. The Senate Ethics Committee, the House Ethics Committee, they should look into that, and I do believe that is grounds, even if it occurred prior to taking one seat, to expel someone.
Isn't that interesting? Because in the constellation of all of this is you've got Al Franken doing just that and resigning at this point for things that he did before he was a senator. We had some members on Outnumbered say that they'll have to see if he's really going to leave because he didn't give us a date certain. John McCormick, senior writer of the Weekly Standard, thank you very much for helping us break it down.